Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Department of Justice Lunch and Learn. My name is Heather Claw. I am the Deputy Attorney General at the Department of Justice, and I have the great pleasure and opportunity to go ahead and host you guys for this particular Lunch and Learn for today. We will be talking about the business regulatory uh, business regulatory, and we have some exciting guests that we have here that have had on before. Um, I'm Kia Ani Nishle, Torich Ini Bashish Chin, Touch Ini Dasha Che, and Torich Ini Dasha Nala. I want to go ahead and make an announcement here, but exciting. The Attorney General Ethel Branch, she is currently working on the water settlement regarding the uh, Arizona water settlements, the Colorado River and Little Colorado River. So that's where she is at this time. But we do have some announcements to make regarding that settlement. I'd like to provide a save the date for Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission and the Navajo Nation Department of Water Rights Unit. They will be facilitating a community education meeting on the proposed water settlements for the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River. Those people who should attend this meeting is all community members, any leaders in the area, elders, youth organizations, anybody that's living in the area of the Upper Basin and the Lower Basin, Colorado, and Little Colorado River. Some of the discussions that will be on topic is the Indian Water Rights Law and Little Colorado River adjudication and Navajo's proposed Navajo's Nation's involvement in this comprehensive proposal for these water rights settlements with the United States and also the state of Arizona and other pertinent parties involved. So the first hearing that they're going to be having the public community meeting is going to be on Monday, January 29th from 9 a.m. to noon. And this is going to be at the Navajo Nation Museum in Window Rock, Arizona. On the same day, January 29th, from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, there's going to be meeting at Granado, Arizona. Friday, February 2nd, from 9 a.m. to noon, they will be at Chinle, Arizona. Friday, February 2nd, from 2 to 5, they're going to be at Pinon, Arizona. Monday, February 5th, from 9 a.m. To noon, they're going to be in Kayenta, Arizona. And on Monday, February 5th, the same day, they're going from 2 to 5 p.m. They will be at Tuba City, Arizona. We will be posting these dates on the President's website as well as Department of Justice websites. There's going to be public announcements on the radio regarding the reminder of the dates and the times, and also announcements on where the locations will be at. So we just want to go ahead and provide those save the dates for you at this time. Let's go ahead and move to the announcements or introductions. So for the lunch talk today, we are going to be Mr. Nota Silver Smith is a department manager for the Business of Regulatory Department. As department manager, Mr. Silver Smith acts as implements the Navajo Business Opportunity Act, as well as the compliance with the Navajo Corporation, Partnerships and Limited Liability Corporation Code. Mr. Silversmith has been the department manager for 2 years. During this time, he has worked to modernize the department to ensure it is adequately meeting the needs of the Navajo people. Mr. Silversmith graduated from the Northern Arizona University with a degree in business administration and has worked for the Navajo Nation in various capacities for over 10 years. The next presenter is Catherine Belowski. She currently serves as the Assistant Attorney General for the Economic Community Development Unit, which is referred to at ECDU. She is responsible for advising the Division of Economic Development, Division of Community Development, Navajo Gaming Regulatory Office, and the Navajo Nation on gaming matters. The ECDU has a staff of 4 attorneys and 2 legal secretaries. Before working with the ECDU unit, Catherine worked for 5 years as an attorney with the Department of Justice in the litigation unit, where she handled a variety of tribal, state, and federal cases. She received a BA, a bachelor's, from Cornell University, her Juris Doctorate from the University of Minnesota Law School, and an LLM in Indigenous Peoples Law and Policy from the University of Arizona, James E. Roger College of Law. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn over the presentation to them. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I kind of think I'm going first, so I'll go ahead and start that. Yate, it's good to be here. Hello to all my Navajo people and everybody that's listening on Facebook right now. My name's Nota C. Silversmith in Shehanagani Mishlon, Kia Ani Bashichin, Italian Deshiche, Todachini, Deshanella. And thank you for that introduction, Heather. So like she said, I've been in this capacity for about 2 years now, since April of 2021. Since coming on board, it was then under the previous administration, but they set some initiatives. But going forward, the Nigrin administration, we kind of finished on that in terms of amending several laws for the Navajo Nation. There was a legislation that previously went through, and it included the Navajo Business Opportunity Act and the Navajo Nation Procurement Act. I'll go into that a little later, but just kind of leading up to it, Ms. Bazowski asked me to provide some background on how we got to this point and passing of the law. So basically, in April or about May of 2021, my boss at the time approached me and said that we needed to kind of pay attention to NABOA, which is the Navajo Business Opportunity Act. So we started kind of going into that, and I started looking and taking the necessary steps to kind of get it moving and try to get like some amendments going with it. So the first step in that was to hold some public meetings and public outreach. And as you know, at the time, around that time, it was almost middle of COVID. So we were kind of getting out of it a little bit. So we kind of did the presentations and the outreach. We did some announcements through the Navajo Times, I believe the Independent too. And we also just did some announcements on the Navajo Nation email system, just to kind of inform people. And we also sent out letters, not certified letters, but we just sent out letters to all the registered businesses on the source listing. And I believe we reached out to some on the corporations code as well. So we sent those out. We asked for opinions and kind of some guidance on kind of how they would like us to amend the laws and inform them that we're going to be having the public meetings. The turnout, so we had the meetings in May, June, and July of 2021. It was average turnout. There was about 40 or 50 businesses that probably participated in total that are listed on the source listing. Not to mention the Ned Chamber of Commerce. They were present. They had input. NHA was there, just to note a few. So there was a active participation and some good comments that we gathered from those. I didn't really get too much public input or too much public comments. We did have a deadline on when we could receive those. I think that was back in, August of 2022, I want to say. So yeah, we've been working on this for a while, and within that, we developed the comments and we drafted some amendments. We worked with Department of Justice on the NABOA part of it, and we just kind of kept working at it, and this is kind of where we ended up. So basically, we got legislation to drop. It went through the standing committees that it needed to go through. I believe it was Law and Order, Budget and Finance, NABI, and then finally the council, and that was passed in 2023 fall session for Navajo Nation Council, and thereafter it was signed into law with a resolution from President Brew Nigrin. I believe November 3rd was the date. So that's kind of where we at, background on how we got to this point. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if you want to add anything, Catherine, at this time, but if not, I can go into my presentation and kind of just go over NABOA and some of the changes that we kind of went through.
I had nothing to add, Nota, if you want to get into your presentation.
All right. Well, I have a short presentation. Unfortunately, it's not available for you guys, but just to kind of go over NABOA. in a standstill. So it's basically to promote the economic self-sufficiency of the Navajo Nation by granting first opportunity to Navajo or Native American-owned operated businesses, promote competitive bidding and contracting opportunities among Navajo businesses. The intent of the law is to grant first opportunity, contract preference, qualified Navajo-owned Native American business for all subcontractors, grants issued by public or private entities within the boundaries of the Navajo Nation. I will say that it is not the intent of the Navajo Business Opportunity Act or the Navajo Nation to require any or other public entities to contract with non-qualified Navajo or Native American-owned businesses. So basically, what that means is, it puts you in the running for the grants and the contracts and whatnot, but it does not guarantee that you will get the contracts. Basically, you do have to meet qualifications depending on if it's an RFP or if you're just listed on Business Regulatory's source listing. Let me check the comments real quick. I don't see any comments, so I'll keep going. All right, I kind of went over this already. We just kind of been my intro on the background. So we did the 3 hearings. We drafted it in 2022. And then in March of 2023, we had a work session with Department of Justice in which we kind of sat there for a whole day and kind of just went through our amendments and kind of went back and forth to kind of put together something that was almost in a final version. And then we handed it off to Department of Justice to go ahead and take it home and put in all the legal jargon and whatnot that needed to be in there. So with that, the sponsors for the legislation, it was legislation 0203-23. Seth Damon and Shandine Parrish spearheaded that. And they really did a good job on that. I really commend them for that because we really had no issues in passing this law. So, I'd really commended them after that. Just really thanking them and Catherine and all the participants involved. So, yeah, like I said, it was signed into resolution C0-81-23 November 3rd of 2023. And the amendments were developed in conjunction with the Navajo Nation Procurement Act amendments, but I won't really touch on that. I'll leave that up to Catherine if she wants to go into that. I'll stick to NABOA. I'll stay in my lane. So some notable changes to the law was it supports large purchase increases of 100, 1,000 or greater. It's still at 50,000 right now, and that won't go into effect until the upcoming Procurement Act rules and regulation amendments are put into effect which they're currently drafting and working on at OOC. So we should be getting something on that pretty soon. Includes nonprofits and gives them the ability to register as priority 2. Clarifies language and doesn't leave it open for interpretation legally. It's kind of very straightforward to the point. And the last law, there was kind of some discrepancies where it was open to interpretation and, we were kind of getting sued and, a lot of legal issues with that. So that's kind of why the need was there too. It also includes that RFPs will be listed with Business Regulatory at navajoeconomy.org. We're currently working on the website and we hope to have that implemented here within the next couple of weeks because we're in the final stages of that for Business Regulatory and Navajo DED. And then it just clarified language, condensed sections and reorganized them a little bit and just made it overall easier to read and understand. So those are my main points. Am I missing anything from that, Catherine, that you can see? I kind of ran it by my staff and we were good with that.
Oh no, Todd, that sounds good.
Okay, I'll keep going. And then just a couple more slides, and then I'll be done with my presentation and we'll open it up for questions. But it applies to Navajo Nation government, including all Navajo Nation enterprises like NECA, NAPI, the shopping centers, all Navajo Nation chapters, certified or non-certified, private businesses under contract with the Navajo Nation, and all procurement activities exceeding 50,000 right now. And like I said, it does support the $100,000 large purchase limit. So we'll go on with that. So it does not apply to business site leases, home site leases, office space leases, shopping center leases, mineral leases, and private individuals procuring goods and services for their own use and benefit. So that's basically what I have, and that's my staff. Those are our contact information, and we're always open at Navajo Business Opportunity Act to help people. So, or at the Business Regulatory Department, excuse me. We're always ready to help people and assist customers and new businesses. So we're very customer friendly now. So I encourage you guys to come to our office, come visit us if you don't know much about us. But that's really all I have. And then thank you for the opportunity to present today. And I'll hand it off to Catherine, and we'll see if we have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Nota. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone. As Deputy Claw stated, my name is Catherine Balzowski. I'm the Assistant Attorney General for the Economic Community Development Unit. I'm Billigana, just 100% Billigana on this one, nothing too exciting. But I've had the privilege of advising the Division of Economic Development, which includes the Business Regulatory Department, for the past 5 years. And it's really been great to be a part of helping the department implement this, to implement the Navajo Business Opportunity Act. And as someone coming in from the outside and not really having a lot of experience on Navajo prior to me working with the Department of Justice, the Navajo Business Opportunity Act is really a unique act to Navajo. And it's something that, at least from my perspective, is a real great example of Navajo sovereignty and Navajo implementing, laws that they feel are going to benefit not just their people, but also, protect the economic development interests of the nation. So I really appreciate Mr. Silversmith's leadership over the past several years to try to bring the act into the 21st century. The act was originally passed back in the first passed back in the 1980s. And it's been amended several times since then, probably just like three times, last time being in 2005, to try to help, address the modernization of how business functions on the Navajo Nation. And so this is a lot. The amendments were passed in 2003. And so it had been almost 10 years since the last time this act had been updated. And it was only with the support of the Division of Economic Development that really pushed to say, it's time and we need to try to provide more, make sure the protections for Navajo businesses are clear. So just to give a little more legal background for people who are on this call, in the Navajo Bill of Rights, which again, another great example of Navajo sovereignty at work here. In Section 2 of the Navajo Bill of Rights, it does include a specific protection for Navajo Nation citizens in employment and business contracting. And so this idea that, NABOA works very closely with the Navajo Bill of Rights in protecting Navajo citizens and their ability to have that economic opportunity on the Navajo Nation. And we have had Navajo Supreme Court did do an interpretation of how the NABOA and Bill of Rights work together back in 2004 in a case called Inaba versus Navajo Nation Department of Water Resources. And in there, that's where the Supreme Court upheld that idea that, if you're going to make changes to the Navajo Business Opportunity Act, it has to be in conjunction with this section of the Bill of Rights. And so when these amendments were going through, we really worked hard to keep that in mind and keep the words of the Supreme Court in mind to make sure that the amendments as they were being drafted would still promote this opportunity for economic development and be in compliance with Section 2 of the Navajo Nation Bill of Rights. So just to kind of go over a little bit what Mr. Silversmith also stated, a lot of the because the Procurement Act and the Navajo Business Opportunity Act work or have kind of worked together over years, but they haven't necessarily been updated at the same time. At least on the Navajo Nation government side, we saw a lot of inconsistencies on how these acts were being applied. And so the Navajo Procurement Act only applies to the Navajo Nation government when the Navajo Nation government is procuring to expend Navajo Nation funds. But the Navajo Business Opportunity Act is a much broader act. It doesn't just apply to the Navajo Nation government. It applies to all employers on the Navajo Nation who are conducting business, with some exceptions that Mr. Silver-Smith touched upon. But for the most part, if you're a business operating on the Navajo Nation, NABOA applies to you. And so making sure that the NABOA works not just for private entities, but trying to make sure that it also is clear how it applies to the Navajo Nation government. And that's why it was really important to have both the acts be amended at the same time. And as I just want to echo Mr. Silver-Smith's statement. And thanks to Delegate Parrish and Delegate Damon for really understanding that and knowing that if we didn't amend both together, they wouldn't be able to work. They wouldn't be able to work as fluidly in protecting, that priority and that economic development interest for Navajo people. So again, really appreciate them and the work that they did too on promoting these amendments and understand the importance of them. I will say, when I was a young lass in law school, I did not think that I would be doing procurement law or that procurement law would be as big part of my life as it is now, but it is a very fascinating part of Navajo Nation law. And it's something that if people, ever want to get a deep dive into it, me and my staff, we've really become Navajo Nation procurement nerds and love to talk about it. But I think, with where most governments, like state governments and federal governments, have procurement laws and acts, and businesses that operate in the state and federal jurisdictions are pretty familiar with how those procurement laws and how those apply to them, right? There's 2 CFR for the feds. All the states have their own procurements. But on Navajo, we have to overlay all our procurements with that Navajo business opportunity, right? To make sure that we are in compliance with that Section 2 of the business, of the Navajo Nation Bill of Rights, to make sure we're not just procuring pursuant to our laws, but that the procurement is done in a manner that provides that opportunity. And something that I think, we heard in the comments and feedbacks when these amendments were moving was this kind of juxtaposition between providing opportunity versus just, straight providing contracts. Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what the Navajo Business Opportunity Act does. And people say, oh, it just gives, it just means that no non-Navajo or no priority ones will ever get a contract, right? We hear a lot of that, not just from our own, from the people within the Navajo Nation government, but also from outside. And I think it's really important to just note the name of the act, right? It's providing the opportunities. It's not that we're necessarily requiring businesses to hire Navajo businesses, but we want to give that opportunity to the Navajo businesses so that they can, have that first bite, if you will, the apple, to put themselves forward for whatever project is happening. And I think that we've seen through these amendments, we've really tried to incorporate some of the feedback that we received where Navajo businesses were, coming to the Business Regulatory Department and saying, we're not getting that opportunities. Those opportunities aren't being provided to us. We're seeing a lot of non-Native businesses getting hired over us in these various procurements, whether it be Navajo Nation or, the private industries that are operating on the Navajo Nation. So with the amendments, we really tried to make it very clear, because because of how they had been amended over the years, we haven't really had, there was a lot, it was hard for people were having to kind of read the tea leaves, right? Read the tea leaves, piece together the various laws to figure out, okay, this court case says this, law says this, like trying to piece together, do the best they can to be in compliance with the NBOA. And I think my hope is, and I'm sure, different people may differ in their minds, but my hope is that that's what these amendments accomplished, is they provided a lot clearer guidance, both for the private sector and the public sector, on how they're supposed to procure in a way that will be in compliance with the NBOA. So there's a lot less confusion, and also it's very clear on how that preference is going to be applied. So one of the biggest changes I think that people will see with the NBOA amendments is that it really lays out how the procurement for requests for proposals or requests for qualifications, how the opening of those proposals and a statement of qualifications is supposed to happen. Because what we were seeing on our end was a lot of variation. So a lot of, and not to anyone's particular fault, just because people weren't sure. They're like, I'm not really sure based on how this current law is written, how I'm supposed to do this. So I'll do it this way, and maybe that's fine. But we were seeing a lot, it was very inconsistent. And so it was hard. There wasn't a consistent application of the NBOA throughout the Navajo Nation. And so hopefully, and time will tell, hopefully that these amendments will provide that consistency so that when a Navajo business submits a proposal, whether it be to, a community school, the Navajo Nation government, or a private entity, they will have that expectation of knowing how how that entity is going to open the proposals and apply that Navajo preference to them. So what is that process? What are we talking about? And this is where it used to be in what we called Section 205, and I think it's now in Section 204 of the amended Act, where it lays out this very detailed process of how proposals are, not just proposals, right? Invitations for bids, requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, how they're opened on the Navajo Nation. And I think it's now in Section 2, the new amended version 204. And just to, for all the people who really, really want to nerd out on this and read this law themselves and see what I'm talking about, go to this. You can go to the DIBS website, which is a website run by the Navajo Nation Council, where they put all the laws that are passed on it. We haven't currently incorporated these amendments into the Navajo Nation Code. So if you do go on like Westlaw, or if you have a hard copy of our Navajo Nation Code, these amendments won't be included in that. You'll need to go to the DIBS website, which I'm forgetting the whole citation now, but it's DIBBS, I think .gov.org. If you just search DIBS, Navajo Nation Council, it comes up. I have to do that quite a few times. But if you go to there, search, Navajo procurement amendments or Navajo NOVO amendments, you can find the draft that the legislation that was passed by and then signed into law by president. So just FYI, if you're like, it's not showing up on my Westlaw, it's not going to show up on your Westlaw probably for quite some time. That Westlaw has been updated since 2014. And the legislation number is CO-81-23. So if you look at the new amended section, it's 206. This is where the process is laid out. So NOVOA does two things. It lays out how you can get priority as a Navajo business, right? What you need to show, who qualifies for the priority. I will say there weren't any major changes to that section. It still is remaining the same, where 100 to 51% or is priority one. I'm sorry, 100% is priority one, 51% to 99% is priority two, which is what was in the prior law. So, so it does that. It lays out how you can qualify for priority, right? Because the Business Regulatory Department that Mr. Silversmith is the manager of, they're responsible for determining the priority. So if you're in a business doing on Navajo and you're like, hey, I would like to get this priority status and get what's on what we call the priority list that the Business Regulatory Department manages, the NOVOA will instruct you how you can do that and the process to follow. And then the Business Regulatory Department is really helpful, as Mr. Silversmith stated, in providing information about who needs, what documents you're going to need to show to their office to prove that your business is actually Navajo owned. And things we're looking for, just an FYI, if you do want to submit an application for priority, you really need to show that your business is owned and controlled by a Navajo citizen. So we don't just want a Navajo citizen on the paperwork, but then all the actual decisions and ownership important ownership decisions are being made by non-Navajo citizens. The business regulatory department is really going to scrutinize, like, how is this business structured, and is the Navajo that is on this application, what kind of role do they have in this company, and are they actively participating in this company, or are they like off in Hawaii hanging out, soaking up the sun, while the business is actually being run by people who are not citizens of the Navajo Nation. And so once you get that certification and you get on the business opportunity, the priority source list, that's where companies will go to look, right? So a lot of times for the Navajo Nation, as Mr. Silverstone stated, if a purchase is under $100,000, we don't necessarily, the nation is not required to put out a public bid or a proposal for that. We can do what we call a small purchase. And so what our departments and programs do then at that point is they go to the source list, right? So if your company is on the source list, that's going to be the first place that the government, at least the government entities, will look for to determine who, are there any people on the source list that can do this work? And so that description, that, just a FYI, that description that you put on the source list is very important, right? You really want to make it as detailed as possible, because that's what people are going to go through. They're going to be like, okay, is there anyone that could do web design, right? So they're going to go through and look for anyone who does web design. I mean, if you just have a general statement like computer services, they may not necessarily ping you as someone who is able to do web design. So just an FYI, you really want to be detailed in that description that you use, because that's what the programs and departments, at least in the Navajo Nation government, are really supposed to look for when they're doing small purchases. So once you get on that priority source list, it's going to be important for you as an Navajo business to make sure that you identify yourself as an entity on the priority source list when you're submitting your proposals and statement for qualifications and bids to whatever entity is doing the procurement, because only then will they actually know that you are on the source list. Sometimes I think businesses think that we, the government, have an obligation, like we are going to go check the source list and see if you're on it. And this is usually, I will say 99% of the time, not because nothing's 100%, 99% of the time, the RFP that you're responding to will say indicate on your submission whether you're a priority 1 or 2. And surprisingly, a lot of people won't do that. And I don't know if they think that we'll just look on our own, but we don't. So you really, once you get the priority status and you have it, it's really upon you to make sure that you identify yourself as such when you are submitting these proposals, so that you do get the benefit of the NBOA. And what is that benefit, you ask? The benefit is that you get the first bite of the apple in the opening of these proposals and bids and statement of qualifications. So you get the first chance to show the procuring party that you are qualified to do the job that they are trying to procure for. It doesn't mean, again, right, it's opportunity. You are having the opportunity to go first, to say, hey, here is my resume. Here's, how much I'm going to charge you. Here, I'm qualified. And so what the procuring party is supposed to do is they're supposed to open all the priority, ones first, see if there's anyone who is qualified to do the job. And then if there's no one in there who meets the qualifications, which should be in theory laid out in your RFP, then they go to the priority 2s. So that's the opportunity, right? And it's all dependent on you being on that priority list. And so I see Mr. Silversmith has joined us. You want to add some comments?
Yeah, I'll kind of stay here for a little bit, just thinking about this and just listening to your presentation. Previously, before my office went to Department of Justice, and we kind of asked for clarification on the bidding process. And this is a little before the actual amendments were passed. We kind of cleaned this process up from the get-go. I sent several memos out about it, and it kind of went out. But I just want to say that it really does give first opportunity to a priority 1 or priority 2 vendor that's on our source listing. I know that some people and businesses will probably disagree with that, but the fact of the matter is that it really does. It provides you that opportunity to bid on a contract, considering that you respond to the request for proposal or invitation to bid, whatever it be, properly and within the parameters stated in the RFP. So, and then another thing is you got to list your priority one preference. If you're a priority one company, listed on the envelope, and they have to be sealed usually, sealed bids. So, you have to make sure that it's on the envelope. The only time there's an exception for that is like if one of my staff is there and because we know the source listing, we know the businesses that are listed. So they're typically there ready to catch any discrepancies like that when it comes to the MABOA. And, by luck, if you don't do that, they may say, yeah, maybe we can let them in, but it's all up to the RFP and what it states too. So kind of some issues that I've seen in my tenure here is with businesses that say they don't get a first opportunity or NABOA doesn't work. It all comes down to experience and professionalism and how you're putting together your RFPs. We get some RFPs that are probably this thin. We get some RFPs that are this thick in details that really have professionals that are really addressing all scopes of the RFP. Anything that it asks, it addresses every question. So, that's kind of one of the things that I see here. When it comes to companies bidding on these contracts. Another thing is inexperience and lack of capacity. That kind of plays into things. And just kind of knowing how the Navajo Nation government works, it might be beneficial to individuals that are opening businesses and trying to do business on the Navajo Nation to actually do some homework and look at some of our laws and look at the procurement laws, look at NABOA, read them and kind of look at how those things are stated and how to go about those processes. So that would kind of be my recommendation. I know that we can't please everybody, and that was the case with these amendments. We did it on a majority basis. We knew we weren't going to please everybody. We knew that, some things weren't working. We knew that it didn't jive with the Procurement Act. And we knew that we actually did have to go back and look at INABA decision, court decisions, past decisions in NABOA and kind of really fill in the gaps. And it was really open to interpretation, and it really caused some legal issues for the Navajo Nation. So when I say that it works now, and hopefully, like what Catherine was saying, that it is going to work, and we really looked at the law and we really looked at what's going to apply, what's not going to apply. We cleared up the bidding process. We added nonprofits because they weren't in there previously. We did a lot of things on that, and I just really would like to give kudos to Catherine, her team, Francis, and Lillian. They all really helped us develop this thing, and they all put their thoughts, my staff included. I have my staff that was here. We have a few members that left now, but, I really want to thank them for, putting the time and effort to kind of put some really meaningful amendments to this act. And, on the procurement side, I'm sure it's the same way with OOC and how they developed theirs, So there was a lot of thought that went into this. I'm sure people will disagree, but we feel comfortable right now with it as how it's protecting the Navajo Nation and our assets and our money, the people's money, because, a lot of that stuff was open to interpretation before. So I really wanted to kind of go into that. But I do have there's a lot of Navajo companies, Native American companies that do really use the law correctly. And, they get bids all the time. They know the system. They know how to word things. They know they have the capacity. And one thing that they're not doing in those cases is they're not stiffing the bill with somebody. They're not leaving it and not doing work. They're fulfilling the contracts, and they're living up to their company's name and giving them a good reputation. Sometimes that doesn't happen, unfortunately, and that's just kind of the side of doing business and working for this department that I wish I could have more say on. And we're kind of looking to address those areas. So, it's going to be changing. There's going to be a lot of changes coming up, and it's just a matter of getting everything set and ready to go. So I just kind of wanted to comment on that, and I don't think I really touched base on the actual how it spells it out in NABOA now on how you open the bids. It really does give first preference to priority ones, because the way it goes is you open the priority ones first, and if there's one or two, you open both of them. You look at if they're over the MFP, which is the maximum feasible price, and you look at if they're qualified. If they're not qualified, then you go on to priority twos. Only then can you go on to priority twos. Same situation, nobody qualified, they don't meet the MFP, then only then can you open the non-priorities, which is everybody that's not listed with our office. So, I really want to commend that process because it does have some teeth to it now. And just even registering with our office, with the corporations code office, that's another aspect to it. And, with the government contracts, there's enforcement coming with that through Attorney General now. So our office has really become an important entity in this process for the procurement and governmental contracts. So I just really wanted to emphasize that. And, if there's any questions, I'm up for it. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. So I'll put myself on mute and then I'll just stay on here and listen until whatever comes up. So thank you.
Thanks, Nota. Do you have, I'll ask a question of you right now, actually. Do you have any kind of like positive examples that you've seen where the NABOA work or? Yeah,
there's, like I said, I can mention like a few companies, like Innova is one of them. I'll just shout that out there. Then there's Indigenous Designs out of Albuquerque. There's Clausen Excavating, and then we have small businesses that come through here that actually, they don't lie about what their capacity is. They don't try to just like take money. They actually fulfill contracts and give them to the extent to where they're fulfilling the contract, they're providing the services. We've had it a few times where companies just come in, they say they can do the contract, they take the money, and then they run, basically. We don't hear from them for a while, and then we get complaints from the government that's doing the contracts and saying, hey, we've been asking for these guys to provide the services, but they're not providing it. So, in that way, I advocate for Navajo and Native American businesses a lot over here. It's something close to my heart. And I really like our people in terms of trying to help them thrive. That's why customer service is very important to me. My staff are very important to me and the people that I work with. So, I just really want to kind of put that out there and just, know that this is a good place to come do some business. So if you need to register a business, come see us. And, we do our due diligence when it comes to these Navajo and Native American businesses and trying to help them. So, and I'll say that for DED in general, but business regulatory.
And I think Mr. Silversmith makes a good point. The priority listing isn't like a Better Business Bureau listing. There's no vouching by the Navajo Nation government that the companies on this priority list are qualified. It's not a qualification list. It's the only thing that we're saying that we're representing to the public with the priority list is the ownership, right? That the people designated as priority ones, that this company is owned 100% owned by Navajo, but we're not necessarily vouching to say for all the services that are listed that they can do all those services and they can do them well. We're just giving you a list of companies that are able to do it, potentially.
On paper.
In theory.
And then, certain companies do develop that track record and they're very well known in the industries. And, like I said, they perform and they answer to RFPs and they pay attention to detail. I'll tell you that much when it comes to NABOA. So when it comes to using that successfully, paying attention to the details in the RFP and having your ducks in a row really goes a long ways and really helps your company or business.
And sorry, and just to, note, there's another act that we are not talking about here today called the Navajo Business and Procurement Act, which, it's confusing enough as it is. We have a Procurement Act, the NABOA, and a Navajo Business and Procurement Act, which is a different act. But that, just to kind of FYI, because I do know people contact Business Regulatory Department about, they'll say this business isn't operating correctly, or they have complaints, they haven't followed through on their contracts. And when that happens on the Navajo Nation government side, when we interact with businesses that aren't fulfilling their contracts or are blatant violation of Navajo Nation laws, one thing that the one option the Business Regulatory Department has is to remove them from the source list, because the source list is, as stated in Section 2 of the Bill of Rights, right? It's a benefit, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be on this list. But in theory, if you're not in compliance with Navajo Nation laws, or you're blatant violating laws and contracts that you're entering into as a Navajo business, the Business and Procurement Act does allow BRD to remove you from that privilege, to remove that privilege from you. And that's really a discretionary based decision. But, it is something that is in the toolbox for companies that are, just completely not adhering to good business practices on the nation. And I don't know, Mr. Silversmith, if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, and I will say that it is something that I've encountered since coming on board here. I've gotten many complaints about companies not fulfilling duties and just blacklisting people. But it is one thing I will say that I do look out for now. And when say a company does that to someone and I get a complaint, it's something when they come to register next time, I'll say, hey, I got this complaint about you. How was it addressed? What did you do? I mean, you're coming to register with us now, and just kind of things like that. I will, the good companies I'll let go through, like, no problem. Usually it's no issues with that. But if I'm getting a lot of complaints on a company, I will look into it, and I will kind of enforce that to the most of my abilities, which isn't much right now. But, like I said, there's changes coming, and we're going to start putting together some ideas. Was kind of like maybe a blacklist of companies that have done that kind of action, and just kind of little ideas like that. So we are looking into it, and like I said, customer service. Even the main people I'm looking out for in those scenarios are the people that come, like the mom and pops that come into our office and they actually use the source listing to get some of these services, and most of the times they're the ones that are done wrong and kind of left in the dust. It's our own people that we're doing this to. So I really have an issue with that. And so just in terms of that, I do look out for that kind of stuff. And it is something that we are going to start cracking down on pretty soon. So that's my opinion on that, and statement, I guess you could say.
And I know hopefully with the, there are new procurement regulations that are going to be issued here, hopefully in the next month or so, that will help also give more guidance to procurement for the Navajo Nation government with the new amended Procurement Act. But, the hope, right, is that these two acts are really going to work together to provide the protection. But I do want to note that a lot of times people will go to the Business Regulatory Department when they have an issue with procurement. But just really try to keep the, as Mr. Silversmith said, right, the lanes separate, because not in theory, legally, the Business Regulatory Department only oversees compliance with NABOA. So if you have a more general procurement issue, that's the Office of the Comptroller. And I know that a lot of companies will come to the Business Regulatory Department with all the issues they have. The RFP wasn't issued correctly, we think we're qualified, or they'll come to them kind of as a clearinghouse for all of their procurement issues. But it's the code only really gives them the oversight over NABOA. So if you think that the priority part of the procurement was not done correctly, go to Business Regulatory, go to Mr. Silversmith's, file your appeal. If you have a more general issue with the procurement, with how the RFP was issued and whatnot, go to the Office of the Comptroller. I just want to clarify, because I think some people lose their appeal times, or their appeal time passes, because they, instead of going to the Comptroller's office, they submit it to Business Regulatory Department. So just also wanted to provide that clarity. And then I see Deputy Claw has rejoined the party, so I will defer to her.
Well, thank you both with that information and your experiences that you had. I definitely appreciate the clarity that you guys made with understanding that this is not a Better Business Bureau to report to. But Nota, if I can get some better understanding, you made mention that you are compiling information. So when they do come back to obtain their priority in there, those are some of the things that you can casually address, or you address with them, kind of like on offhand, just to make sure that they are not only in compliance, but aware of some complaints that I have, or do
yeah. I just make them aware, basically, that, we've received several complaints on them. And, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm giving you like a warning now. it may just be a warning for now, and that's kind of what I can do. But, I just want you to know that we're aware of it. And, we're going to kind of look out this year and see how it goes. And, so a lot of times that kind of does the trick. And, we'll get the vendors, they'll come back and they'll clean it up. And then we'll get a call from the people making the complaints saying, oh, yeah, they came and they finally did the job right and completed it up to specifications and whatnot. So, most of the time that's enough. But like I said, at DED here with our director, Mr. Skrilanis, we're looking at new ways to kind of enforce these kind of actions. Some of that lays with his office, but we are looking at these, and especially with Department of Justice on board, we're going to be looking at our rules and regulations pretty soon with the ARPA and stuff. I've been pretty busy with that right now, but I'm actually going to start looking into the rules and regulations for the Business Regulatory Department and really start defining that with Department of Justice to kind of clarify some of the authority that we have to bring businesses into compliance and register with them with our office, and to do business in general with the Navajo Nation. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you for that. And also, just you made mention that you guys were working on some amendments for this particular act. Is there a timeline that you guys have kind of looked at, or is it just certain proposals that you guys are working on at this point?
Catherine. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Deputy, amendments to the NBOA, or I'm sorry.
Yes, amendments to the Navajo Business Opportunity Act.
The amendments that were passed in 2023 are the most recent amendments. We're not currently working on any more amendments to this act. As Mr. Silversmith stated, his office has asked us to start working on regulations for the act, right? So similarly, like there are for the Procurement Act, there's regulations that help implement and provide better guidance. He's asked for that for the NABOA, and there's never, just an FYI, never been regulations on the Navajo Business Opportunity Act. So this would be the first time that those would actually be implemented by the nation.
Well, thank you for that. It looks like we're going to go to the comments here, and I can definitely understand how sometimes it's difficult with people starting up businesses. They want to be able to figure out how to do this. And a lot of times, sometimes people lack the guidance for the technical aspects of the things. But I also want to make it known that some of these fundings, if they are either internal general funds from the Navajo Nation or federal funds or state funds, the reasons why we have to go ahead and follow and make sure that our procurement or our business regulatory or any of these acts comply with that, or we need to comply with our own, or that's our own legislations and laws, because that's where we find out we have audit findings on. Just that being said, I wanted to go over, there's a few questions on here. Marlon, I apologize, but I'm not exactly sure what kind of a question that you're asking. You said that you disagreed with something early on in the presentation, and then made mention that you do have there's a little bit of light on the real life roadmap. So I don't know if that's just a comment or if you had some questions coming from that. LJ Nelson, you made mention that the Department of Justice is, I guess, knows how to confuse the Navajo people with the opinions they write without public hearing, and the writings they do not, is not healthy for our people. Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but keep in mind that the Department of Justice is the attorneys for the Navajo Nations. I do believe that it's always great to hear from the public, and we look towards our departments and divisions to go ahead and come up with the guidance and understanding their institutional knowledge and their experience and expertise within the subject matter that makes that we provide guidance to go ahead and put it in the laws and regulations. So the legal work that we do are to some extent for our clients, and then of course those types of changes, our understanding of what the Navajo Nation Council, who is responsible for legislation, how they want to accomplish things. So we work in conjunction and for the departments and division directors and the council delegates. So I apologize that you feel that way. I know sometimes it does feel that the attorneys are controlling things, but just for clarification on that. Kimba.
Heather, just chime in. Kimba is actually with Fourth World Design Groups. She is a priority one vendor, and she does an excellent job on her RFPs and putting together contracts and whatnot. So she is a great example of a business doing things the right way, and small business and woman-owned too. So.
Well, I definitely appreciate that comment, Kimba. That way, you're a good example of how this works successfully. Maybe a future presentation, maybe we should have some of these companies that were able to successfully navigate it and give an example and give the public their opinion, because I think that is valuable for the public to understand a success story, what their challenges are, and how they were able to go ahead and navigate through this act successfully. So thank you for your comment, Kimberly.
And with that, I'll just go ahead and say that our office is always open for outreach. We're always willing to present at chapters, departments, even in public meetings and whatnot. We're there. We're there to help, and just come into our office. We'll even give you some guidance on, some of the do's and don'ts. We're here to help the small business community. We just promote. What I'm here to promote, though, is just good business and honest businesses that are working hard to actually, have a successful business. Because as small businesses, it's very hard for them to come up into a larger organization and build capacity and those sort of things. So, our office is here to help.
Thank you for that. Catherine, do you have any closing comments?
No, I think the biggest thing is like I said, I think time will tell on these amendments. I think Mr. Silversmith and I have kind of presented that our hope for them, our hope that this will provide more clarity for everybody procuring on the Navajo Nation and applying to BOA, and hope to provide that opportunity for Navajo businesses. But obviously, if our hope does not manifest, we want that feedback. So if there are people, we really rely on a lot of feedback from the public, the businesses that are working in this area. And if people aren't seeing that, or they're not seeing people comply with the amendments, or they are complying, the amendments aren't operating in the way that we hoped they would, please let us know. Please feel free to contact the Business Regulatory Department, the Department of Justice, because we can always go back and try to tweak or fix things that may need to be fixed. So, so thank you, and really appreciate people who've taken their lunch hour to attend this.
Mr. Silversmith, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, just in line with what Catherine said, if there's, this is a law that's in place obviously now, but doesn't mean that it won't change in the future. Doesn't mean that it's not open for amendments and improvement. It may take a while to do that, but putting things in writing goes a long way. Put it in writing, send it to our offices. That way it's clarified, and we can look at the parts of the law that, we may have an issue with. So, it's always open to change a little bit, so that would be what I could say. But I'd just like to thank DOJ, the Office of the President and Vice President, you, Ms. Claw, Ms. Bazowski, and her team over there, and just my staff, for all the hard work they've put towards these, and just the great job they do with working with our constituents. So.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate this. I think these Lunch and Learn lunchtime episodes have done tremendous to go ahead and just let the community be more involved, or understanding and what processes that has been taken in order to establish this, and what the benefits are. And it's great to be able to address the comments to understand what those obstacles are. Because I think a lot of times we do take an overview consideration of laws that needs to be taken care of, but then we miss those small details that maybe fall in there. So definitely appreciate the opportunity to do this. I'd like to also thank the Office of the President for hosting these and being able to do outreach to the Navajo people, and the opportunity to do my first appearance here. I'm a little camera shy, so I appreciate the opportunity for AG to allowing me to go ahead and host this, and I look forward to hosting more, because this was definitely a benefit that I can see. So thank you for that. I think we are up to the closing here. Looks like somebody else just came up with a quick question. We have just a minute left. It says, who must register for this regulatory department?
If you're a small business or looking to do business on the Navajo Nation, it benefits you to register with us, basically for the priority preference. And just in general, if you're an LLC or incorporation, register with our office too, if you plan to do business on the Navajo Nation.
And just a quick follow-up. So once you guys are registered for within the Better Business, or excuse me, the business regulatory, there are also obligations that the company needs to follow up with regarding tax reporting through the tax commission, and doing their yearly taxes. So it doesn't just stop to make sure that you are on the priority list, but keep in mind that as a business person, you need to go ahead and research all of the requirements the Navajo Nation has in order to go ahead and do responsible business within the Navajo Nation.
Excellent point, Heather. Just to give a shout out to Tax Commission and their staff that help over there too. But that is a major part of the priority 1 and priority 2 source listing process is procurement clearances, and one of them is the Tax Commission that we do seek a procurement clearance for. It's not on, so yeah, and then just register with if you're an LLC or incorporation, it helps to register with us if you're doing contracts as well. So.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us for your lunch period, and we appreciate it. We're looking forward to more of these presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.